The something that you raised earlier, when you had a vision for your life, and I think this is all, also maybe 7 billion of us are having this question too. You have this vision for your life of what it was going to be. We're going to swim out to this island to help the birds, um, and then when life has a different agenda from that, and how, I wonder if you might speak to that. You have this, we all had the, probably, many of us had an idea of how 2020 was going to go for us. And maybe we're now concocting our stories about how 2021 is going to go for us. And, the world had a different agenda. And what is it that when those two agendas, clashing agendas, come into contact with each other, how do you negotiate that?
Yeah, that's such an interesting question, isn't it? Because of course that's, in one's own life, but it's also, career, ambition, all these things. It's good to have goals, of course. It's good to have things that we're working towards, and then they get thwarted. And I think it's, I've been thinking about this quite a bit just the last couple of weeks, because it's what's becoming apparent to all of us. 2020 wasn't just a little blip. It wasn't like, well, 2020 is over and now we're, normal service has resumed.
Right.
Which probably 6 months ago, we kind of fantasized that it would.
Yeah.
We thought it was all going to be over in 3 months and 6 months. No one in the UK would have thought we'd be back into a hard lockdown beginning of January. So I've been reflecting on this, and I'm, talking to people I know and the people around me, that some people are obviously finding it really, really hard, of course, understandably, and some people aren't. Some people are finding it easier. So my current sort of reflection is that it's really important to have one's own personal goals and dreams. Dreams are really important, aren't they? But we also need to hold everything lightly. We need to hold everything lightly. And one of the really surprising fruits of meditation, mindfulness, I'm a practicing Buddhist, one of the unexpected fruits that I would never have expected is lightheartedness. I'm a much more lighthearted person than I used to be, much less intense. And I think it is, as you say, this kind of, one needs to develop this twin ability of having goals and dreams and holding everything lightly, thinking, well, it may or may not happen. I'm gonna proceed as if it might happen, but guess what? It might not happen. And then if it doesn't happen, we just go with whatever, you just sort of go with whatever arrives, with this attitude of more fluidity, more openness. We can also reframe things, because it is quite interesting now. I'm 61 and I'm finding moving into my 60s, it feels like quite a different phase of my life. And there's a kind of like gathering things in a certain kind of way. And I had all this dream of being a wilderness person. That hasn't happened. But I realized, I've kind of been a mountaineer of the inner world. So that myth of being a mountaineer has stayed alive. That myth of being an adventurer has stayed alive, even though I've not been able to do any of the outdoorsy things that I wanted. And in some ways, it's better being a mountaineer of the inner world, because you never reach the summit. There's always further to go. There's always more magic. There's always more wonder. There's always more, like right now, here we are in this world, in this state. How can I dance with taking life very, very seriously and holding it very, very lightly? That's like another growth point. And then, lockdown permitting, in May and June of this year, I'm going to go off to the Isle of Skye in Scotland and live in a little hut for 2 months on the edge of the loch. Yeah, I found this place where I'll get my care needs met, but I'll also have time on my own in this little hut. And that's amazing. That feels like that goes way back to that story of what I wanted as a 15-year-old. And I'm finding a way to do that in my way as a 61-year-old with a disability. That feels, that's kind of honoring that dream. And it probably won't happen. So yeah, I'm putting all this effort into setting the whole thing up, and I'm looking forward to it. And one of the things I've really learned from 2020, and I think it's a really great thing to learn, is it may or may not happen. And how can I learn to take that into the future, that kind of more lighthearted attitude to planning? And there's a lot of wisdom in that, you see, because we, it's so deluded the way we plan our lives, assuming it's going to happen. Well, why? There's all sorts of things that can stop our plans happening. But that doesn't mean to say that we shouldn't plan. That's the kind of paradox. So I'm doing all this planning for this mythic time that's very, very meaningful for me. And I'll be fine if it doesn't happen. I'll also be fine if it doesn't happen. And that's what we need to learn as a species, I think, collectively.
Yeah, I'm just going to circle back to that, right?